What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Blind Power. Today I want to talk about being a video creator and how it's been as a visually impaired person. I've been creating videos for Blind Power for a little bit over a year, and I've been making videos since I was a kid, but they were like non-professional, just kind of me messing around. Didn't really take it seriously until Blind Power, but I learned a lot from those little fun messing around editing sessions. And I want to give you a little bit of background story on how usually you learn to edit. If you're visually impaired, it's not as hard as it may sound, and if you're totally blind, it's not impossible. You could still edit. It's just you have to go by audio instead of by visuals. So the first thing is, what I use for editing is I use Final Cut Pro. A lot of people like Premiere Pro, which is available on Windows as well. Final Cut's only available on Mac, so it depends on what you have. If you have a Windows machine, Final Cut won't work, but Premiere will. Now, I use Final Cut because it's more blind friendly. You can do almost everything using your keyboard commands, and I can be zoomed in, and I could basically see everything clearer because of the fact that it's all laid out in blocks. Adobe Premiere Pro is laid out more by, I think they're like modules, so it's like different little squares, and you can hide them and show them, and to me it's a disaster. Now I use the native magnification on the Mac. It's good enough for me. Now if you use Premiere Pro and you use Zoom Text, I've tried it because I've tried to learn Premiere Pro, and Zoom Text doesn't like Premiere Pro, so you may have to use the Windows native magnifier. JAWS on Premiere Pro kind of works, but it's an interesting dilemma because the certain commands will conflict with the timeline and with JAWS. So anyways, I use Final Cut on the Mac. I have the late 2016 MacBook Pro, top of the line, and an iMac that is a 2015 21.5 inch, but I also have a monitor next to it that I use as well, so that way when I need to do more complicated edits, I use my iMac. When I want to do my normal edits, I use my MacBook Pro because it's a lot more powerful. The thing is, as a creator and being visually impaired, I like Final Cut because we have simple keystrokes. You have to do command this, command that. No, you just do A for normal selector tool, and then B to like a little snipping tool, V to disable a clip, and that's basically the best thing about Final Cut as a visually impaired editor, is I can keep my eyes on the footage, and I can just keep my hands on the keyboard and do what I need to do. Granted, there's certain filters and stuff that I have to apply to the videos. Like I color correct my own stuff, which is the next thing I want to talk about. That's the thing. Color correcting as a visually impaired person, you might be like, oh, well, don't you make mistakes? Well, see, here's the thing. There is one thing that we have, the color wheel. I love the color wheel because I look at the color. I click my mouse on the color wheel and I move it around to what I like. So, say if my face is too red because the sun's behind me, I can color correct it and I can be like, oh, that's not. And usually, I could zoom in using Zoom, and then I can bring the color wheel close, and I can actually color correct what I need to do. Usually, after this camera that I bought recently, the M50, I don't have to color correct much because the colors are on point. When I had the T6, I had way too many color problems. Sometimes I would look yellow, and it was a mess. So, I do color correct, but I use the magnifier and I use the color wheel. It's really super simple. I'll show you guys some of the editing here as I talk, hopefully. Now the main barrier that I have as a visually impaired editor, creator, whatever you want to call it, is sometimes when you're doing special effects, like when you're cutting from one scene to another, it all looks like jumpy, you know, like I could be doing this and then I could be doing that because I jumped and I skipped a frame or two, and that's the problem that you guys may see in the beginning when I started making videos. I would be like, so, and then my hands would just pop up in the air, and you know, I would be with whatever different facial expression because of the fact that I would jump scenes too fast. I didn't transition into them. And so transitions I really had problems with until somebody told me, hey, you're skipping frames, and I'm like, I didn't know. So now I use I use a little tool that allows me to do that, which I found inside of Final Cut Pro, and basically it's a setting to enable, and it guides you from frame to frame to frame. So it really helps. And that way I kind of get a visual, closer view of each frame. And that's the main barrier I had. But besides that, it's been awesome editing and making content. And, you know, that's the best part. I like editing and I like filming. So let's talk about filming now. Now, the first things with filming, this one's a long story, okay? When I started Blind Power, I got the T6, which doesn't have a flip screen, and the T6 I did, but I didn't know that at the time when I purchased this camera. I had a decent budget for myself, so I said, okay, I'm gonna get the T6, and I'm gonna get a good lens, 18-55, which was more of an expensive lens. And I said, okay, but now that I think about it, after when I was filming, I'm like, and I was vlogging and stuff, I'm like, wait, I need a flip view mirror so that I can see myself with. I realized a lot of the time I was out of frame, or my head was like cut off, like you see right here. My head is perfect aligned with the top of the frame. That's because I could see myself through the flip screen. Right now I use the M50, which is awesome because, you know, it allows me to see myself. But the other thing is, with you know, the beginning camera equipment, I had to color correct a lot, and I don't like color correcting because it's harder. It's more of a challenge. I could make mistakes that I don't want to make. Like there was a time where I don't know if you guys noticed in one of the vlogs, I had a white shirt, but I put my background a little more, I guess a little more white, and then like my shirt turned white. It was a disaster because I didn't know, you know, how to separate different elements of a video. So now I shoot in Canon RAW, and I edit on the actual camera. I do the color correcting, and then I export it to Final Cut, and then there I edit it and stuff. So when you shoot in usually like in the Canon RAW format, it actually is more convenient because you get more control over your film, and it just looks nicer, and you don't have to do more work when you're editing. And I like this for, you know, being a visually impaired person, you want to avoid as much color correcting, especially if you're colorblind. You know, you don't want to touch the color stuff. Sometimes it's hard not to because things don't come out the way you want, but a good camera, I've realized, means that you don't have to do so much color correcting, because this camera is a beast, and the one that I had in the beginning was a beginner camera. You know, I was starting out. And I learned that lesson. Now with this camera, it's awesome. So the next thing I want to talk about is vlogging. Now, vlogging as a visually impaired person, there's a lot of barriers and there's a lot of things that are awesome about it as well. The first thing is, you know, with vlogging, I started off with the T6, and I had the same problem that I didn't have the flip screen, and I would miss the shot until I got used to figuring out where my face was, you know, according to the camera, but it was never in center frame. And, you know, the camera didn't stabilize well, and I had, like, the footage was shaky, and I had to stabilize it in editing. And, you know, it was a problem because I would walk around, and also, you know, it would be shaky because I'd have my cane out, and then people would bump into my hand where I have the camera, or I should say I bump into them, and then I'm like, oops, sorry. Like I literally walked and I've almost like camera punched people because I'm vlogging, and I'm looking at the camera while trying to walk. So that's one main barrier I had until I got this camera, the M50, and the flip screen. I just kind of, oh, I'm in frame, and then I could just look where I'm going and look at the little mirror, because it's actually more toward the side of the camera, which is why you may be seeing, oh, he's not looking at the camera, he's looking just to the side. So you who are sighted may notice that I'm not looking directly at it. Like, I'm looking at it now. This is when I'm looking at the screen. You can tell the difference, so you're visually impaired as well. Yeah, that's one barrier that I overcome with this equipment. So sometimes, my problem always has been equipment. You can be a totally blind vlogger and hold your own camera. You just have to have your own equipment and figure out what works for you. And if you're visually impaired and you don't know, and you're starting to vlog and you don't know what equipment works, start off with something. Read reviews. This camera is great because it has the mirror and the little flip screen. You could use that. So for vlogging, that was a big help. The other things that I came into when vlogging was B-roll. My big dilemma as a YouTube creator is, okay, there's totally blind, there's visually impaired, and there's the totally sighted. I got 3 different visual groups that I have to account for. So I'm like, I love doing B-roll, and I love editing the nice little, jump shots and stuff. But for the totally blind, it's not fair, because they're just listening to music until I'm back talking. And lately, I've been realizing, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do. I have a ratio now, which is 30% B-roll, 70%. The actual vlog, because if it's too much B-roll, then for those of you who are totally blind, you only get music, and you're like, okay, I'm listening to music, and so and you may know it's B-roll, but you don't really care for it because you can't see it, or unless you have somebody next to you describe the B-roll. But the thing is, B-roll starts a story, and B-roll tells a story in a quick and easy manner. And I've had to figure out a way to tell the story by talking instead of by just showing everything. Sometimes I had to describe things. So in the NFB conference, for example, on one video I described what my room looked like, and I said, oh, I have a bed to my left, a bed to my right, and in the center I have a lamp. And that's the new way to show, to start a story. Like, I'm at a hotel, and you give the totally blind, what's around you, and you're listening to the vlog. You imagine me in that hotel. You imagine me standing in the center, with 2 beds, one to my left, one to my right, and the lamp in front of me, and the TV behind me, and then I set the scene for you. And I'm not that great at doing this because, I don't do it everywhere. I forget sometimes, and I want to be better at it. I want to be better at describing my surroundings so that, I set the scene without B-roll for those of you who are totally blind. And that way, it works fairly for everybody, because you get B-roll, you also get the descriptions of what's around me, and that's the main struggle of vlogging as a creator, is how do you set the scene for both communities, for 3 communities, for the blind and the visually impaired and the sighted. And I know that even there's channels that aren't about blindness, and you have to sit there through the B-roll, and a lot of the time you just fast forward through the B-roll. Being a creator in the blind and visually impaired community is awesome, because you look at content from a different perspective than the other YouTubers. They only think about, oh, I want to set the scene with B-roll and then talk about what's going on. So by the time the B-roll goes through and they start talking, they expect you to know what the scene is through the B-roll. And that's the most common thing on YouTube. And I feel like more YouTube community, and the sighted community should think about people who either are totally blind or visually impaired, or if you're doing another thing, you're cooking and you're listening to a video, and even if you're sighted, you have that vlogger setting the scene and you imagine the scene around you. So it just adds an extra pop to your videos, no matter what, describing the scene. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember, we have Twitter and Instagram now. Snapchat may be coming soon. I don't know yet, but we'll see, because I'm trying to do more social media stuff so that way we can grow that way as well. Comment, rate, subscribe. You know what to do. I will see you in the next video. Hit the subscribe button and remember to enable the notification bell to get all notifications of blind power uploads. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.